It's great to be here, and thanks for having me. And it's a thrill to be following Anna. I've gotten the opportunity now to teach for her at NYU, and truly believe in her approach that is grounded in so many years of experience in HR and how the evolution of how people organize to achieve great things together inside of organizations is going to evolve. And I'm going to share my take on that as well. My background is primarily strategy and innovation. I organize a strategy network, a peer group of chief strategy officers of billion-dollar plus businesses from places like Microsoft and IBM and L'Oreal, across lots of different sectors and increasingly globally. And so I get a chance to think with them about what are the strategic questions and the emerging strategic issues that are impacting people and organizations. And about 5 years ago, I began a research project based off of what I was hearing. And I just want to share some insights from that and suggest 7 things that you can do to open up your organization and to become a more agile organization, borrowing the words from Anna here. So I'm going to present my screen, I think. Great. But when we think about who the innovators are in society, if we look at a list of most innovative people, most innovative business leaders, these are the names that come up repeatedly. Now, as you look at these pictures, I'd like you to notice a few things about them. When we look at Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Michael Dell, and then kind of the next generation, Musk and Zuckerberg, the founders of Airbnb, when we look at them, what pops up as a kind of surprisingly consistent, certainly, is that they're all white men, which is absolutely an issue that we need to address. The other thing that is striking is the commonality of their story. All of them got a big idea sometime in college. Some of them left college early to pursue that idea. Some people continued through college. They're all from the United States, with the exception of Musk, who then did move to the United States, and I went to school with him actually in college. They all then leave where they're studying, and they make a journey across the country to the mecca of innovation in the United States, which is Silicon Valley. And then they step into a cave with a small team. That cave is usually a garage. And they have their hipster, their hacker, and their hustler, and they build something that they then release onto the market that then disrupts the old, stale, stagnant enterprises, the incumbents. Now, the fact that their stories are so similar should make us question whether the story actually is true. And I propose to you that we tell this story not because it is the primary driver of innovation in society, but rather because it is a fun story to tell. It's a sticky story. If you tell this story, you'll sell more books. You'll sell more magazines. You'll get more hits on your website because it evokes a hero mythology that attracts people. But if we look at the facts, what we'll see is that actually this is not the story. That actually employees, not entrepreneurs, are the primary drivers of innovation in society. So I looked at the 30 most transformative innovations over the last 3 decades. This is a list judged by a panel of professors from Wharton Business School, based off of thousands of submissions, and they debated what are the really big transformative innovations. So these are the big ones. This is like the internet, like email, like MRIs and DNA sequencing. And I looked at who conceived of the idea, who developed the idea, excuse me, and who scaled the idea. What I found is that 70% of these innovations were conceived of not by entrepreneurs, but by employees. Now, sit with that for a moment. Not only is the story of this hero entrepreneur false, it also tells employees that they're not meant to be the innovators. And what's the consequence of that? Well, the consequence of that is that if employees stop viewing themselves as the primary innovators, they will stop trying to innovate, and the world will be robbed by the next innovations that are going to shape society. Imagine a world in which you do not have a mobile phone to reach for in the morning. If you did have that, you wouldn't be able to connect it to the internet. If you did somehow do that, you wouldn't be able to send an email. If you got sick, you couldn't get an MRI. You couldn't get a stent. We would live in a radically poorer world if it were not for employees who innovate. So what I did is I looked at what are the barriers that employees cite when they say that they can't innovate. Over those 5 years, this is pulling from my most recent book, Driving Innovation from Within. I interviewed over 150 internal employee entrepreneurs. I asked each of them, what do you see as the primary barrier? And so this is what I'm going to share with you, the 7 barriers. So the first barrier is intent, which is that many employees have stopped trying to innovate. So if we want to activate greater innovation from within, the first thing we do is light up that intent and show people why they are the innovators. And there are 3 primary barriers that stop people from seeing themselves as innovators. The next step is, once we've activated them, we need to tell them where they should be innovating. They need to understand the need that the company has. And most employees don't understand that need because they don't understand our strategy, because our strategies are too complex. Then we need to enable them to develop portfolios of options. Instead of getting stuck on just one option, we need to get them in the habit of being able to generate lots and lots of potential options, ideas for how to solve that need, if you will. And then we need to enable them to overcome what I call value blockers. You can think of this as business model conflict. They will see that there's a natural way to sell the idea in the marketplace, to operationalize it, to staff it, to brand it, to price it. Those are all business model choices. And when those business model choices are inconsistent with your current way of staffing or selling or pricing or branding, that creates a value blocker. But it's really easy actually to step back and redesign that idea to avoid those value blockers. So we need to enable them to do effective business model design. And the next barrier that employees complain about is this idea of acting. And basically what it says is that we have evolved as established organizations to adopt a prove, plan, execute model. Prove to me the idea will work, develop a business plan, and I'll give you the money to execute that business plan. But actually with innovations, what we need is a different model. We need a act, learn, build model. I like to say we need to, instead of prove it to do it, we need to do it to prove it. So we have to allow for agile experimentation. The next barrier is team. After they've designed that agile experimentation, they need to put together a team. And the team that they need doesn't all report to the same person. They need someone from marketing. They need someone from finance. They need someone from operations. And unless they have the support of the CEO, there's no authority that can tell all these people to work on the idea. So we need to enable that kind of teaming. And then finally, environment. They need to be good at understanding and managing the organizational environment. Effective internal innovators, they view the political challenge as part of the problem-solving process. And so what we want to do is we want to enable people not only to effectively navigate the politics, but actually love the politics and see that as part of the human side of the designing the innovation. So I named these so that they spell innovate, I-N-O-V-A-T-E, simply so that your employees will be able to more easily remember these barriers and know when you are in one step what is coming next, and recognize that the frustration that you're facing is not an indication that something's wrong. It's an indication that you are on the path of innovation. So I want to just talk a little bit about environment, because I know that many of you here are leaders and organizers and people who structure your organizations. And what I'd looked at was every research study I could find that talks about what the drivers are of higher levels of internal innovation. And I won't go into these each, but there's a lot of things that we think are a problem that aren't a problem. There are a lot of levers that are effective that we don't talk about as being effective. I want to just point out a couple. So we have talent. What kind of talent do you need? What kind of structure do you need? What kind of culture do you need? And what kind of leadership do you need? And if we look at structure, there's really just 4 things that you need to do as a leader. Number one is provide resources, which is time and money, reward innovation, allow for risk-taking, and allow for organizational freedom, allow for people to team up across silos. Now, if we look at these 7 barriers, what we're going to see is the contours of a new organization. I think Anna referred to it as the Agile Organization, which I think is exactly appropriate, because right now our organizational paradigms don't allow for the agility we need. They're designed as centrally planned economies, right? Where a central authority makes all the decisions of who's going to work where money goes, where jobs go, right? And we know that central planning does not work, especially in fast-paced environments, because it puts us in a situation where the pace of change outside exceeds our ability to change inside. And so the traditional hierarchical model is falling away. And what is emerging is something that I think is super exciting. If we talk about intent, people are going to stop looking at employees as employees, but instead as entrepreneurs. If we talk about need, we're going to evolve from complex strategies that nobody understands into simple statements of purpose. If we talk about options, ideas aren't going to come from boardrooms. They're going to come from hallways. They are coming from hallways. Value blockers. You're not going to have one business model. You're going to have an ecosystem of different business models. We're going to stop asking people for business plans and instead allow them to experiment. Team, we're going to evolve from hierarchies and silos into agile teams. And environment, ultimately, the organization evolves from central planning to becoming a platform where every employee is empowered to see opportunities and seize the resources to pursue those opportunities. So those are the 7 things that we really want to think about. This is my contact information. If you want to reach me via Twitter, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, my website. I really am on a mission to enable people who see the possibility of freeing employees to innovate to do so. So if there's anything that I can provide to enable you to bring this kind of approach into your organization, I'd love to hear from you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your sharing.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.